Welcome to Kingdom Mothers Rise Up, where I encourage and equip you to heal your heart and renew your mind so you can live the fully abundant life Jesus promised you. Let's go. It's time to move. Welcome to the last week of connecting with your child's emotions. This week we're talking about heart doodling. So we've covered kind of like what emotions are and things that we need to build communication and, vocabulary and awareness around emotions. And we talked about filling buckets last week. We talked about separating thoughts from emotions and then sorting out where those thoughts are coming from. So hopefully you're feeling like you've got a bunch of tools that you can be practicing and changing how you relate to your own emotions and how you relate to your kids' emotions. And so this week is another tool. And I call it heart doodling. This last summer, I was doing some healing work with a friend of mine, and the way she was doing it had a very specific protocol and some mind-body tools, and it just wasn't connecting for me. I'm like, I believe that it's working and I can kind of see things are shifting, but it's just not working for me. And I was like, I need to put it on paper somehow. And I had done a workshop a couple years before that, I guess, where somebody, she taught about doodling your emotions, I think was what she called it. And she had this little character that she had made of herself. And so I had done just some of her free workshops. And so that idea kind of came back to mind. And I was like, okay, so like, I'm going to start like doodling these emotions and these thoughts, whatever. And so the insights that the Lord was showing me and the connections I was able to make was just super powerful. And when I would share, like people were seeing the power of that. And so I've just continued experimenting with it and use it with my daughter too, to say like, okay, if you were to make a picture of how you're feeling right now, what would that look like? And I think I've talked about that in one of the other classes too, but just wanted to take a week to highlight how you can use something creative and something, I guess, that your expectations away to give your kids a safe space to explore how they're feeling. And to, like, I like the heart doodling because it makes you look at your emotions in a different way instead of just like, this is what I'm feeling and like feeling overwhelmed by it or whatever, to kind of step back from it and go, well, what would this look like? Like, does it feel like I have a big rock on my head? Or does it feel like I'm all tied up in knots? Or, like, what does it feel like? It's just a helpful way to, one, fight perfectionism, because I encourage you to draw with a pen or a permanent marker, something that you can't erase, to accept that you're not doing this to try and make something perfect. You're not trying to make something exceptional. You're just trying to listen to your emotions. And so you don't have to draw or paint perfectly to be able to help get the message from them. And putting it on paper helps to make that space to listen, of like, I don't know, kind of like having a page there kind of challenges you to like fill up the page or put some thoughts down there or whatever. I think that that is part of the power of the doodling too, is that God created us in his image and he is a creator. So when we take the time to be creative, we are being more like him. And so that's obviously going to be good for us. So I have a workshop on this one. It's called Emotions Don't Drive, or Shouldn't Drive. So I and my spirit-led self get to drive, and I want the emotions in the passenger seat, giving me good information, helping me navigate the way. I don't want them stuffed in the trunk. I don't want to leave them on the side of the road. I might think I do, but I really don't. Like, they belong in the passenger seat, helping me navigate, because they are a gift from God. this day I was recognizing that I was feeling hurt and sad and had decisions to make that I didn't want to make. And so like I had that visual of like I'm building up this wall to avoid the hurt and the sadness and the decisions. But what I saw as I was making the picture is that, oh, the comfort that I want and the healing that I need is on the other side of that wall too. Because if I don't tell anybody I'm hurting, I can't be comforted. If I don't tell anybody I'm sad, I can't be comforted. Like I can't get what I want if I wall these things off. So just a way to look at that. And this one, I think this was one of the first ones I did that I just was like, okay, I have to put something on paper. And I called it spinning out. And at first I was just like, I don't even know what to put on the page. So I drew the black swirl first. I'm like, okay, now what? And then I was like, well, I feel like I'm spinning out, and like today started good. So I started the inside with like my day started with focus and intention, and just kind of like, oh, here's where I spiraled out to, I feel like a failure. Like, oh, here this is again. And so just being able to like put it down on paper and see that, what the Lord was saying is that like it's this trust again, like you're not trusting me. You're trying to handle all of this stuff on your own. And he's not beating me up for not trusting him. He's just inviting me to trust him because he knows things go better when I trust him. And this one was sorting through that. It's kind of like Romans 7 of, the good I want to do, I don't do, and the bad I don't want to do, I do. And like, why is this? Like, what's going on? Like these two people inside me, there's the wounded, angry me, and this is how she feels and how she acts. And then there's the spirit-led, reborn me that lives this way. And, like doing this with your kids to even help, like, who do you want to be? And what do you need to act more like the person that you really are than the person that's letting their anger take control or whatever it is. This one I was looking at defensiveness and, had that image of being hunkered down behind the sandbags, like I'm under attack and I just need to stay hunkered down and make sure I'm safe. And seeing things that felt like rejection and seeing that made me feel like I was in a battle to try and prove my worth so that people weren't rejecting me. And like, it's just exhausting and it's not helpful. And exploring to feel loved, like we are loved. So how do I feel loved? Instead of just, because I kind of grew up with the, like, I knew my parents loved me, but I didn't ever feel loved. So taking the time to look at, okay, if I know I'm loved, then what are the ways that I actually experience that? And that still might not come from my parents, but like find the people in my life and God in my life of where do I actually feel loved? What are the things that help me feel that way? Over responsibility. This was one of like slowing down a little bit to be like, oh, so if I'm taking on a bunch of stuff that's really not mine, I'm just weighed down with, the groceries in my purse and my phone and my drink and just like, no, I got it all. I got it. Instead of like, no, I don't need to carry all this. I could have some help. And I think this is the last one to share, just of being well equipped. And the scripture says that we are given everything we need for every good work that he's designed us for. So I am well equipped for that. And so imagining, so on some of these, like I was sorting through how I was feeling and what does that look like, but it can also be used to imagine if I believe what God says about me, how would that feel? What would that look like? And so, I'm his daughter, so I'm royalty and I have the mind of Christ and I have a heart that's connected to his heart and I have his word and I have the fruit of the spirit and shoes, which, I never have shoes in my pictures, but I have the shoes because it prepared the gospel of peace, so just those things to sit and look at, like what am I feeling? Or even sometimes, what do I want to feel? And what would that look like? To be able to sit down with your kids and, okay, you're feeling lonely. What does that look like? And then what do you want to feel instead? What would that look like? And what would that take, And sometimes that's going to be, well, you're feeling lonely because you never want to share anything. So nobody wants to play with you. And like, it's still legitimate that you feel lonely, but it's also legitimate that they don't want to play with you when you act that way. So there's some things you need to change. Or it could be you're feeling lonely and you really are being kind and doing everything you can, and people around you just aren't receiving that. And that really stinks. What can you do? Because you're never a victim. So like, this isn't fun, but still recognizing like they're doing the best they can. So if they're doing the best they can, do you want to adjust to spend more time with them, or do you just want to find more things that you like doing alone right now and pray that God brings you a friend, or whatever that is? I guess I feel like it's powerful, one, because we're being creative like God, we're acting in his image like he made us to. It challenges that perfectionism of like needing to get this right. And it helps us separate from like our emotions are something we're experiencing instead of who we are. So instead of I'm lonely, I'm experiencing loneliness. Instead of I'm a failure, I failed at this thing. This thing didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. So I think it helps create that distance and that space. And then it also gives you the opportunity to record the thoughts that are coming with those emotions, and putting the thoughts on paper or speaking them to someone gets it out of your head and just instantly brings clarity. Like you'll write something and be like, oh my gosh, I think that really, like that's just crazy. I didn't know I thought that. Or, and you'll see where things don't make sense, or just because God created us to be in relationship, he didn't create us to have everything in our head all the time. So getting it out, and if your kids are too young to write for themselves, but then I wrote what she was thinking and feeling. And so this is the one where she was feeling sad and that there was this wall between us, and I was over here happy. So her thoughts were, I feel cut off from others. The enemy puts up a wall and says, no, you can't be with them. For her, putting it on paper helped her recognize that, like, it wasn't in that particular situation, it wasn't even anything I was doing. That the enemy had taken advantage of whatever was going on to tell her that she couldn't be with me. And, so she recognized that, oh, that was his thought that he was telling her. That wasn't true. But we wouldn't have got to that if we didn't take the time to put it on paper. And then this was one where she didn't want to draw, so I did the drawing too, and she just painted over everything. Where I was the boulder between her and God. So she said, when I feel like you are mad at me, I feel like you are a huge boulder resting on me and keeping me from walking over to God and saying, here's my problem. Feeling distressed. It's so funny because she was 5 when she did this, but these are her words. Feeling distressed on this journey is really hard. The truth. There is a God, and I have more than mom to count on. I can say I need a break to be by myself and pray. God replies and takes my problems away. Creating that space to like, okay, we can stop and look at this and see. So then in your focus pages, I gave you a page that you could use to try it out, that you could, you could just copy it on your own pages, or you could print one for each person. I just gave you 4 circles labeled happy, sad, mad, and scared. And some ideas of like what they might want to draw. And if they're young and they don't want to draw, like they could pick a color or a pattern. Like it's even something you could do again and again, and you could challenge them. Like today, if all these emotions, happy, sad, mad, and scared, are patterns, what kind of pattern are they? So maybe happy is swirls, and, sad is kind of droopy, and mad is really sharp, and and then another day you could challenge, like you have to pick a color or a set of colors for each emotion. So it's not just, drawing faces. But if they want to draw faces, like I have people all the time, like, how do I draw this emotion? I'm like, look at your emojis. Which emoji would you pick? Just draw your emoji. As you're thinking about this emotion, like you just have so many conversations of, well, what makes you feel happy? What are the kinds of things that you're doing that make you feel happy? Or what are the things that scare you? And when you feel this way, what's going on in your body? Are your ears getting hot? Are your fists tight? Does your neck hurt? Does your stomach churning? Whatever, just like stop and pay attention. What's going on in your body? What's it trying to tell you? And actually just this morning, because I've been dealing with, I don't even know what, all kinds of weird autoimmune stuff for, well, I don't know, for years and years, but like really intensely for almost 2 years now. And like just this morning, I'm like, okay, what is my body trying to tell me? And it surprised me what I heard, but that I see myself as a burden in dealing with, well, in everything really, but like specifically like the restricted diet and all of the craziness of trying to find things to eat and whatever, of like, it's just a pain. Like, why can't you just eat? And so seeing like that's something I have been working on with the Lord for years because I believed other people saw me as a burden. And so then to see like, oh, I'm seeing and treating myself like a burden. So that's not helping me. So just that of like, because learning to listen to my body was a whole new thing. Like recognizing the emotions and paying attention to them, I feel like I've been practicing for 15 years. But really, like, what's it doing in my body is I don't know, a fairly new, like probably within the last year of being more intentional with that and still not consistently being intentional with like, where does this show up in my body? Like I did it with the crying and sorted out like what my crying was. But other than that, like, it's just something I'm still learning. So I guess just as encouragement of like, don't feel like here's all this stuff and I need to figure it out right now. No, just have conversations, see what the Lord brings up and do that. And then once you've got that down, he'll bring up something else and you can do that. Because he made us to learn in increments and bits at a time, not to just get it all at once and change everything. So yeah, and it's so cool how God connects with us. And I think part of it is when we're being creative, we're using a different part of our brain than when we're thinking. And so it kind of shuts down the thinking part and allows God to connect with our spirit, because the creativity, that part of our brain connects more with our spirit. So we're more open to hearing from the spirit when we're being creative instead of when we're trying to think and analyze something. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up podcast. I'm blessed to have you here. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join us in the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up Facebook community. When you're ready for more support, I have the Heart Doodling with Jesus monthly membership, periodic group coaching, and one-on-one personalized coaching as well. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.